Hello, we're continuing to explore the Moscow Metro, and today we are going to the Arbatsko-Pokrovskaya Line to see both the stations built during the Great Patriotic War and the Phase 2 stations of the Moscow Metro that opened in 1938, Ploshchad Revoluции, Kurskaya, Baumanskaya, and Elektrozavodskaya. The Elektrozavodskaya station was opened in May 1943, marking 9 years since the opening of the Moscow Metro. The station was designed by Vladimir Shuko and Vladimir Gelfrich. Thematically, it centers around fates of labor, and originally there were supposed to be niches with busts in them in the pylons of the station. At first, they were going to be busts of electrical scientists, as is befitting of a station called Elektrozavodskaya, and then the choice shifted towards Stakhanovites of Moscow. But each Moscow enterprise wanted to memorialize their own worker, and it was impossible to decide whose busts should appear on this station. In the end, it was decided to install these reliefs. Here we can see various industries, agriculture, and reminders that the station was built during the Great Patriotic War. Motovilov, the creator of the reliefs, started working on them in times of peace and finished when the war was in full swing. Here we see military production. The light bulb motif is predominant in the station's decor. The ceiling is punctured with spherical covers, and each of them has a bulb of Lenin, the symbol of industrialization, in its center. Interestingly enough, the light bulbs stop being visible from a different perspective, which creates an illusion of sunlight streaming down through a factory's glass vaulted ceiling. Sun-flooded, full of light, that is exactly how industrial production was presented in Soviet movies, such as the famous The Path of Light starring Lyubov Orlova. An interesting anecdote took place when this vaulted ceiling was still in the works. Here is how one of the station's designers, Ivan Rozhin, remembers it. We spent a lot of time thinking about covers and how to make them, and finally came up with aluminum hemispheres. When the ceiling was still dressed in these hoods, the chairman of the executive committee of the Moscow Soviet, Sherbakov, stopped by to examine the station. As he saw the unfinished ceiling, he burst out angrily, "What is this scrap store?" We somehow managed to convince him that it was a work in progress. Later, the hoods were painted white, and now no one would guess that this is aluminium. The Baumanskaya station was opened on January 18, 1943. It's one of the wartime stations of the Moscow Metro. The station was designed by Boris Iofan. This is his only work in the Moscow Metro. His name here is not an accident. The entire third phase of the Moscow Metro was designed by the most prominent architects of the Soviet Union. Interestingly, the station was first conceived under a different name. It was supposed to be called Spartakovskaya and themed around ancient Rome and Spartacus's rebellion. When you visit this station, note the Florentine mosaic created by Ivanov. The mosaic appeared here in the victorious year of 1945 and originally featured two profiles, those of Lenin and Stalin, because at that time every metro station had to include an image of the supreme leader. In 1961, however, during the de-Stalinization of the metro, Joseph Stalin's face was removed. To achieve that, an entire section of the mosaic had to be disassembled and reassembled again. And today, there is only the profile of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin on this monumental piece. During the war years, the theme of the station changed from Spartacus to the front lines and home front. The statues of workers and Red Army soldiers were created by Vyacheslav Andreev, the famous sculptor Nikolai Andreev's younger brother. The Kurskaya station is the gateway to Moscow, as it offers a connection to the Kurskaya railway station. And here is an interesting part. The station was designed by Leonid Mikhailovich Polyakov. We have already encountered this name when talking about the first phase of the Moscow Metro. Taught by Ivan Fomin, Leonid Mikhailovich has even finished his Ploshchad Sverdlova station, now Teatralnaya. Upon a closer look, we can see elements already familiar to us from other stations. These portals remind us of the Krasnaya Vorota station. The covered ceiling also looks like something from Krasnaya Vorota or maybe a Hodny Rad. There is also the go-to motif of the 30s, a sheaf of grain stalks, similar to what we saw on Dmitry Chichulin's Komsomolskaya. And as you enter the station, all these allusions work together so that you see the Moscow metro the way it was built before the war. And indeed, the station was opened in 1938. The Ploshchad Revolutsiya station is probably the most well-known station of the Arbatsko-Pokrovskaya Line. Everyone knows its sculptures, which, just like the station's name, commemorate the 20th anniversary of Soviet rule. The sculptures were originally made from gypsum, and only at the beginning of the Great Patriotic War they were cast in bronze. The figures are placed in a particular chronological order. First, we have the workers and revolutionary soldiers that took part in the events of October 1917. Next, we see a sculptural composition dedicated to the Civil War, which is represented by a Baltic Fleet soldier. Then the famous motto, strengthen the defense of the land of Soviets, industrialization represented by a Stakhanovite, and an engineer, collectivization represented by a collective farm woman and a tractor driver. And finally, a happy life in the land of Soviets achieved after 20 years of Soviet rule, represented by students, athletes, and happy mothers and fathers. Matvey Genrikovich Manizer had a carte blanche to use any models he chose, including the cadets of M.V. Frunze Higher Naval School. One of them was Olympia Rudakov, a man who went on to live the most incredible life. Having barely graduated from the naval school, he witnessed the coronation of George IV in England, where he came with a Soviet delegation aboard the battleship Marat. Later, while serving in the Northern Fleet during the Great Patriotic War, in an unfortunate twist of events, he will be court-martialed and sentenced to serve in penal battalion on the Isthmus of Korea. He survived and went on to rejoin the Northern Fleet. In 1944, he would bring to Russia the HMS Royal Sovereign, battleship gifted to the country by the UK. In 1952, he would become the captain of the freshly launched Sverdlov cruiser. And once again, he would visit England for the coronation of Elizabeth II. The British Queen would learn that the Russian captain had once been present at her father's coronation and, according to a legend, would then invite Olympia Rudakov for a round of waltz. Olympia would end up retiring in the rank of counter-admiral. There used to be 4 more figures on the Ploshchad Revolutsiya station. But during the installation of a hermetic door system after the war, 2 sculptures from the Soviet childhood composition were removed from the central hall and brought to the Moscow Metro pioneer camp. The other 2 sculptures can still be seen on the track side of the wall. There were 2 compositions here, girls looking at the route of Papanin's expedition, and boys, well, naturally Soviet pioneers, could only be interested in aviation. That's all I have for you today. Let's keep exploring Moscow together.